Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Now you can blow off your whole class because I'm just going to make it real easy for you. Just kidding. We have a lot to go through. So I'm Cord Smith. I take it you're all interested in video game design, video games. You're all gamers, I hope, etc. I've been in the industry officially since 1999. So I'm a dinosaur. You can see the gray. I earned it. And I've worked at a lot of companies you may have heard of. I've worked at Sega, I've worked at Ubisoft, I've worked at Square Enix. I've helped run various studios, some of which you may not have heard of, like Pseudo Interactive. You might have heard of Compulsion Games. It's now part of Microsoft. And I've started my own studio as of 2019 called Inevitable Studios. We haven't put out a game yet. You may not know us, but we do have a demo out there. I heard some of you may have played it in the previous class. So that's all a work in progress. I'm happy to talk about that. And I brought a lot of materials. Ironically, I have a presentation that I want to use as a basis for you guys, but it was a presentation for career day at a middle school where my daughter goes. And I thought, pretty good overview. A lot of it was over their heads. So I thought maybe it would be a nice foundation for us to talk about, at least get a sense of what you're interested in, what you want to learn more about. And then in the Q&A, I'm open. We can talk publishing, development, game engines, design, narrative, you name it. Like as an indie dev, we wear a ton of hats. So I have to become a pseudo expert at a lot of things. I also happen to have a really amazing team that I've built. So I've learned a lot from them on almost every side of development, etc. And then with regards to publishing and all that in the industry, yeah, I've been around for some historic times. A lot of you, do you remember Sega being a first party publisher? Like, do you remember Dreamcast? You guys are aware of Genesis and all that back in the day? Well, I was at Sega when they stopped doing that, when they become only software and stopped being a first party and went to a third party. That was interesting times as a big Sega fan. It was like a small death, a changing of the guard, as it were. Anyway, so can you see my mirrored up here? I am. God, that's huge. Those icons are massive. Look at this, career day. Let's see if this loads up. Beautiful. Let's see if I can go full screen on the view. Can I go full screen? Control L. Let's do that. Beauty. There you go. Game development. AI art. We can talk about AI generated art as well. If you guys want to talk about that debate, we'd be here all day, wouldn't we? This would have been helpful for me to explain who I am. So ironically, I get my start as a gamer all my life. I was in grad school getting not a degree in computer science or anything else. I was actually getting my Master of Fine Arts in fiction. So what I've learned in gaming is you can kind of start from anywhere. You get a foothold, you see a door, you walk through it confidently, but you have to have a good attitude. You need some viable skills, and you need to be looking for those opportunities if you're there. So I actually went from freelancing for the official Dreamcast magazine while in grad school to landing a job at Sega, where I got to work on, I think, about 26 titles in 3.5 years, which is insane, the output there. I launched Super Monkey Ball. I got to work on Sonic games, Virtual Fighter, Shinobi, you name it, a bunch of Sega franchises. I left Sega to go to Ubisoft. I worked on one game. I launched the Far Cry series. So you see that there. That was a really fun project. It was a huge ordeal to try to disrupt the FPS market, stop with all the dark corridor shooters. We came out with something that was wide open, beautiful, paradise gone wrong. A lot of that messaging and stuff we came up with at the time, the key art, the look of it, etc. I was a product manager on that, drove that. And then I left to go into development proper. I jumped the fence, and I got a job at Pseudo Interactive in Toronto. And we worked on games like Full Auto 2, and we had a lot of really cool prototypes in the mix before that studio shuttered. So in the news, you see a lot about layoffs and how hard it is to run dev shops and things like that. I also have a lot of experience there, so if you want to talk about that or ask questions, I'm happy to answer them. Later on, Square Enix, worked on franchises like Hitman, Sleeping Dogs, Compulsion, worked on Contrast, went back to work on We Happy Few as a marketing director. Also worked on the creative agency side, so worked on tons of websites, trailers, animated shorts, things like that. Very, very lucky to have found my way to so many cool projects on that side. We even did games while we were at the agency. So my first involvement with remote development, which a lot of you now, you probably take advantage or take it for granted that you have so much remote tools, right? Slack, Discord. How many of you are on Discord? How many of you communicate? Do you game on Discord? Do you use it for voice chat and for messaging? Okay. And like social media, is everybody like across the board? Do you use a lot of different apps? Do you have one go-to? Are you constantly looking at your phone swiping? Are we all zombies? Are we all swipeaholics? It's a different age now, but crazy back then. Anyway, working on that, I got to build 2 games. And I'll tell you, my main partner in building Dead Island Retro Revenge and a Kingsdale for the Final Fantasy franchise, we were the first Western developer to make a Final Fantasy game. Little asterisk note. We never met face to face. We didn't even know each other whenever we started the project. And I also paired that development shop with an animation house in Texas. So really my first professional kind of dealing with Texas, called Powerhouse Animation. Do you know Powerhouse Animation out of Austin? You should. Do you know the Castlevania series on Netflix or the He-Man? That's their claim to fame recently, but they've been working for years. Anyway, we used them to make all of our graphics in the game. So paired an animation house, a dev house, etc. I actually ended up meeting the guys at Powerhouse face to face a few times. But the actual developer on those games, we didn't meet until 2 years after we pushed a King's Tale out the door. Weird, right? Never met face to face, never shook hands, and worked so well together. So I feel like it's a new era. We can be creative together, collaboration. But in order to do that successfully, great attitude, communication, etc. At Inevitable, we have a mandate. Our 3 pillars as a studio are communication, integrity, and creative collaboration. So everybody who works with me, if you abide by those things and you're not an a-hole, there's a no a-hole clause to work at any studio, really, then you can do great work with us. So this is a leftover from the middle school presentation. That's my stepdaughter, Athena, at an arcade in McKinney. This was just to embarrass her, but now she gets to be extra embarrassed by total strangers at a university seeing a picture of her. I love it. She's going to hate me. There's Inevitable, and we'll jump in. So you played Always in Mind. I won't belabor this. I'll be happy to answer questions on it later. But that's our first title. Trivia-wise, it was known as Project Algernon initially. It was conceived back in, I guess, early 2019. There were about 5 different projects. This was one of our favorites. We surveyed an internal group in a network. All my friends in the industry, et cetera, looked at all these concepts and said, hey, which one bears the most fruit? What are you interested in? What do you like? And this was at the top. It's evolved a lot since then. As you know, it's a story-heavy action platformer. I think Screen Rant, or one of the journalists, Games Radar, called it a light platformer with heavy story. It is. It has a very heavy story for such a lighthearted seeming game. It's set in the mind of a young boy, and he's assisted by an AI companion. Some of these images you haven't seen, you wouldn't see in the demo, but it can talk to you and hopefully show you a little bit more behind the scenes. I'll show you some really ugly stuff that'll make you feel great about yourself. Really, really ugly stuff that we started. A lot of it built by me before I had a team much more talented than myself. Tell me if these resonate with you. These I pose to middle schoolers. Like, what are the tools you use to create games? How many of you are wildly aware of game engines and what the options are? And how many of you use a game engine right now? At least one. Okay, what engines are you using? Just call it out. Unreal. Game Maker. That's a popular one. Anybody else of those? Anybody on Unity? Okay. There are other, Godot. Anybody try Godot? Yeah, okay. You're all aware of the Unity debacle from last year and all that. We can talk about that too. We are Unity. We started in Unity. We came from Unreal at Compulsion. I used Unity because as a solo dev, I wanted access to the marketplace. I wanted third-party assets. Now that I have a team, those third-party assets are something of a liability because they're all non-performant. They're kind of a waste if you're doing one visual style. A lot of them have to go. But at the time, it allowed me to make a lot of progress and prep the go. So here you go. Oh, I have a slide for that. It's been a while. I haven't even looked at my slides. In terms of Unity, those of you that have used it or use Unreal, you're used to this complexity, right? Do you find game engines overwhelming or super easy, like for users? Like jump right in, make a game, press that button, right? It's daunting, super daunting. I was overwhelmed. So in 2019, I had to come back into the fold of development because I've worked on publishing side, being marketing, brand, et cetera, you name it in that structure, licensing, PR. I've touched on all that. On the development side, oftentimes I was more acting like an executive producer between production and marketing. And then only recently, really digging back in proper development. When I started at Compulsion, I was working in Unreal, early days Unreal, not the cool Unreal you have now. But getting back into Unity was daunting for me. It was really daunting. It's like, all right, what are we dealing with now with this version? What has changed? And trying to cover everything. I mean, lighting, VFX, just all the components, the way Unity's set up. There are all these idiosyncrasies, right? It's tough. There's a lot to take in. Just vocabulary alone. If you jump into game dev fresh, like everybody know what game objects are in a component. You know your transforms, your scale, your stuff. Do you have all the hotkeys down? You ever been in Unity? I don't know if the other engines have this issue where the camera suddenly clips everything, and all you have to do is hover your mouse on the main scene screen and hit F, and it fixes it, but nobody tells you that. Nothing comes up to fix that. It's just a dumb little nuance of the engine. But it's crazy. And then you've got shaders and materials and textures just on the art side, much less lighting, much less VFX. Once you get into gameplay, oh my God forbid you're using physics of any kind, you're going to be tuning for days, weeks, years, right? There's always something that can be tuned, changed, improved, and then broken. And that's one thing about game dev that's wild. Unlike film, you make a few changes in one day and no longer have a build that runs or change to your code and you can't find what it is, it won't compile. Isn't it wild that you could work on something for years at a time and one day not have access to it? It's wild. Why do we do this? It's crazy. We're all crazy because we love it. For the middle school, I was telling them if they like game dev or they were interested in it, I wonder, this is just a quiz. Do you guys know any of these guys? Do you know Thomas Brush? Anybody heard of Thomas Brush? Yeah, a few. When I was first really getting back in alone before I built my team, these were inspiration for me. Thomas Brush has really great videos. He does like 3-hour streams where he's using Unity, building his games. Just a good guy, a little religious, but if that's your thing, enjoy. Super positive, super collaborative, and teaches a lot of courses and things, full-time game dev. I actually respect. I think it's really cool if you want to get in there. And he does a great job with some of his free stuff he'll give you. Mark Brown's another one who does great design deep dives. Anybody seen Mark Brown? He started making his own game, last year? It's been a year and a half now. The Magnet game. Anybody play his demo? Yeah. Did you play it? It's cool to see him go through the real true pain of making a game after kind of talking theory for so long, but I still think he has a lot of good things to say. Sebastian Legge, how many of you actually code, get your hands dirty in the code, like light coding? Have you heard of Sebastian Legge?
I've used a lot of his tech.
Awesome. It's great, right? And his way of talking about tech I really respect because he doesn't really dumb it down. He actually talks about it in a way that inspires you to be smarter, but not so over your head where you're like, oh, I can't follow that. I love it. And the things he does with portals and some of these things, like the little projects he does have so much polish and so much fun. Anyway, it's really cool. So let's jump into roles. And I know you guys are kind of had this broad approach, but let's talk roles in terms of how to make this talk like this. The middle schoolers didn't even laugh at this slide. Can you believe it? I wanted to talk about hats and about how hard indie dev is because everybody gets to wear a lot of hats. But you know what else? Wearing lots of hats. What's great about wearing lots of hats?
You're easy to hire.
I was going to say you get to do lots of fun stuff. And it's very challenging because you have a lot of stuff you have to do. But indie dev, even if you were to go in your career and isolate yourselves into art direction or level design or whatever you want to really truly do, you find your passion. Being able to touch on all these things and understand how they all interrelate. One, challenges you creatively, challenges you technically. It'll keep you on your toes. It'll teach you a lot, but it also gives you respect for your team. So for any of you that want to find yourselves on a dev team, whatever you want to do, well, let's say you even work your way out of games and you do something else. Having respect, having like context for what someone's challenges are, like what they're trying to tackle, and when they come to you with a solution, being able to constructively talk to them about making that better, but understanding the struggle they went through to even get to that point is key. I found that on the publishing side, the dev side, no matter where I worked in the industry, that was always true. If you could come to somebody and really appreciate what they've done, speak to them intelligently about their work, respect their expertise, you get the best results. You get amazing results because that's the type of person people want to work with, right? Whether you're their boss, you're their collaborator, whatever, or just somebody on the side of the team that has nothing to do with that, who's just saying, dude, that was awesome. Or dudette, I can't believe you did that. It's great. This is overwhelming. Industry roles. Do any of these make sense to you guys? How many of these make sense? Let me find one that's really weird. I don't know, all the chief stuff. Let's take those guys out of the equation. We don't want to talk about them. What's most important here? Is there something really important? Is one of these roles like the most important role? All of them are pretty important. Could you make a game if you didn't have all these? I guess you could. You don't have to have a voice actor if you don't want a game without voice, but they're super important if you do. Do you need a writer to make a game? Not necessarily. Do games have to have a story? Do they need a fantasy or a challenge or a win condition? Maybe. So you say like a game director, creative director, narrative director. What's the difference between those three? Is there a huge difference? What do you think? Can a creative director be a narrative director? Can a narrative director become a creative director? I've seen it. Some of these are just titles, depending on the game, depending on the role, they're titles. And when you look at job descriptions or when people recruit, you got to look at the details as to what's really going on. Most of you, would you rather have the title? Like, let's say you had the opportunity to take a job. Would you be more interested in the title or the project? What's going to draw you into working at a company? Project. That's right. And to that regard, everybody who's playing a role serves the project, right? And you want to work with people who see that and understand that vision the same way you do to make it excellent. But this is here to really, I guess, draw a light to all the different ways that people can contribute to dev. We could talk at length about AAA to indie, like the size of teams. We can talk about collaborations, like a Call of Duty. Is that made with one team in one location? Not at all. Like now we have multi teams, multi members. Like now we're talking hundreds of people, if not thousands, on one title. Then you have games as a service these days. Like, how do you sustain a game? How do you update it constantly? How do you take feedback? How do you deal with network? How do you take with the spikes? I mean, anybody play the Fortnite OG celebration when they brought it back? Did everybody play that? Did you see the surge in players? You think they were ready for it? Proved they kind of weren't. But they're a giant company and that's what they do. And there's still stuff where you have milestones where no matter how many people you have, how many resources, how much money, there's still incredible things. There's a need for planning and help. And every time in the industry, people are doing new and different things. And I'd say, we don't have to dig deep into AI, but where are we going as an industry? Like, what are the titles on here that don't exist yet, that might exist next year, right? Do you feel there'll be a specialization? I mean, I'm under the perception that AI is not yes or no. It's not a binary thing. Are you for it or against it? AI is a reality. The genie's not going back in the bottle, right? How you utilize it will make you better at what you do. These disciplines, even the concept artist friends I have who are exceptional, who work in Hollywood and games, who kind of hate AI, know that eventually they're going to have to incorporate it into their workflow to compete, or they will become a dinosaur, right? It's tough, but there's a lot of stuff going on with the tech, a lot of stuff going on creatively, a lot of stuff going on with trends. You see on social media, trends change all the time, where if you're at that cutting edge and you're flowing it, these roles, a lot of these will be relevant for a long time, but there will be new stuff coming up all the time. Level designers. How many of you liken yourselves to being a level designer? How many of you have built a level in an engine? A few of you. What does a level designer do? Make the level? What else? Come on, don't sell it short.
Design the scenarios the players are
That's good. Yeah, the geometry. What about the logic? Setting up triggers or things, behavior. Would you take care of that? Like the experience someone has in that space. Can a level does
programmers actually set up the assets right? Then yes, you will be doing that.
Okay. But what if they give you the tools you need to set it up right? Give you a component or a trigger box. Does a level have to be pretty? Are you all aware of gray box levels, gray box prototyping and all that? Do you like doing that? Those of you that have done it, why? What's the best thing about gray box? Right, and even a choice of left right. What's the tendency psychologically? And without visuals to help you, granted you can build on that. Without it, what is it at its basic core? I also think gray box is hugely important because you can change it fast, it runs fast, you can sim it fast, right? Keep it simple. I'm weirdly in the middle. I don't do full gray box. You know what I like to have when I'm prototyping? Music. I need to put in some music. Sometimes I like to put in a skybox, some clouds. I like a little atmosphere. I need the visuals. I'm a visual person, so I need something, but I don't need the full gamut. And then once we start building a level and we micropopulate and we put in all the lighting and we have everything working properly, then I'm like, wow, right? It's beyond my imagination. But you can't lean on. Well, some games do lean on it. Anybody played a really good looking game that played like crap?
Yeah.
How many times has that happened to you? Anybody played a slideshow, a game that ran at like 2 frames per second? You're like, I can't even tell if I'm running. I don't even know if my sprint activated. I jumped like 3 seconds ago. Why am I not off the ground? How frustrating is that? We won't dig into much, but we're in the process right now of like reviewing our optimization strategy for the game. It's daunting, but it's so important. Playing an experience at 60 frames versus 6 frames is like, games were not meant to run at 6 frames. Don't do it. Don't let your friends make games that run at 6 frames per second. Character models. Anybody built in 3D? Made an asset? Kind of toyed with Blender or one of those programs. Okay. If you've worked in Engine and built a level like with blocks, you kind of get the sense. But once you actually start modeling and pulling verts, it becomes a different thing. Do you have respect for character modelers? Anybody have character models you've seen where you're like, what? How did you make that? How long did that take? It's huge. We have a very stylized game, as you know. So some things are easier, but it's almost like poetry. Sometimes making something with fewer polys doesn't make it easier to make it good, right? It's real easy to look PS1 quality, low poly, but then you see low poly that's hyper stylized and lit well, and you go like, man, that's amazing. Like that looks so beautiful. I love it. I love the simplicity of it. It's tough. You need it's something to respect. Audio. What about sound effects, music? Important? Not important? Pretty important. Anybody heard of the 50% rule? Audio is 50% of the experience. If you don't believe it, like turn it on, really enjoy your audio, and then just shut it off or mute the game you're playing that you really love. Yeah, it's so important. But audio design is, man, it can be complicated. We use Wise in Unity, which is plug-in. You probably heard of Fmod, Wise, or a number of audio. Gives you a lot of power, a lot of control, a lot of mix capability. You can kind of mix the game live, almost like a film or whatnot. But takes a lot of setup. It's very complicated, but the end results are worth it, and it's super fun to toy with. UI. What is the importance of what is UI? Do you guys just associate UI with HUD, or is UI? And anybody know the term UX? What's the difference between UI and UX?
UI, user interface, and UX is user experience.
That's right. That's right. And the user experience would be more about what, like in general?
The
Feel, the flow, what you do, like the sequencing of things. A lot more about the psychology of just the enjoyment of playing the game and what are you getting. But UI plays into that, right? Because you don't have the information you need, or if menus go nowhere, or I'm trying to access this information, I don't have it. How do you feel? Pretty crappy. Your user experience is bad. They go hand in hand. They get confused a lot. But UI, whether it's HUD or your menus or all that, can feel amazing. And some games really rely on it, right? You play games where, like, I don't know, when I play, did anybody play like World of Warcraft or MMOs or things that have so many options on the screen at one time, where you're almost playing the UI more than you're playing the screen, right? And that's okay, but imagine like all the steps to organize that and put it in the right places where somebody learns it and knows it and intuitively can get it, or housing an inventory system with thousands and thousands of objects. How do you do that and make it intuitive to gamers, much less make it work with a controller, right? Like mouse keyboard's one thing. It's a big deal. It's an important step for us. It's our Achilles heel right now. We had a great UI designer, but we need a UI integrator, so we're a little behind on this. Trivial fact: in the demo, the entire UI was built by me, and it's bad. It's not good. It's a step. It was a placeholder, and we hope to improve on it greatly. VFX. Anybody like particles? Played around with particles? Yeah, it's fun. And hand in hand with lighting. If you haven't played around with particles, do it. Appreciate it. It's one of those where the component is so complicated that it's like daunting, but then you go in and you learn what each of those things do, and just toy with something like sparks. Just do a particle effect for sparks and toy with it and try to turn it into water. Something like that. Just change enough of it where you kind of get a sense of how it works. The speed of it, simulation, the physics, you can toy with gravity, you can toy with velocity. There's so much fun stuff. It seems super daunting. I was daunted by it, but it's magic. It's so much fun to play with. Writing. How many people like writing in general? How many people like reading? You still read books? Yeah? Love books? Love books that turn into films? You ever see a film and read the book? Vice versa? Did Do you read stuff online? Do you guys read fan fiction, or do you have sites you go to like short stuff? Yeah. The weirder the better, or just what constitutes good these days? Anybody read collections of short stories? Do you actually get collections of short stories and sometimes read them? Comics. Anybody read comics? How many of you read comics? Yeah? Oh, I'm surprised. Not more. Graphic novels, does that count? Is this the same thing? Nobody's reading graphic novels. Anybody read Neil Gaiman? Anybody read like comics like Transmet or what are they, like the old Dark Knight stuff? Like Frank Miller stuff, Sin City, stuff like that. I don't know. I get inspired by writing is a passion. As I said, I have my Master of Fine Arts in Fiction. I work with a writer now. I hired a writer to help me write better. Really just focus on writing. And our game is very narratively driven, as you can see. So we use this application called Artisty Draft. Anybody heard of Artisty Draft? This is a wild thing. Anybody heard of Disco Elysium, that RPG? Text heavy, right? Story heavy. They used Artisty Draft. It's really great for branching narrative. We don't branch, but just organizing your story into an overview where you can jump to any part of it, any dialogue, any piece at any time, or see the whole thing zoomed out. It's an amazing application. We actually plug it directly into Unity so that if we change something in Artisty, our dialogue can change in real time in Unity. We don't have to change it in Unity. So the tools we use with this are really, really cool. It's a neat one. Programming, this is too broad a term for programming, but code-wise, daunting? I think it's daunting. Do you guys think like do you look at code and go like, nope? But yeah, like the basics. I mean, how do you get into code? Like, what was your entry to say like, nah, I got this. I'm going to look into the code. I'm going to figure this out. Right. But initially, why? How?
I mean, I just look up on the Unity, their documentation, and I try to find the simplest way to do it, and then I just implement it and see if it works.
How many times do you approach a problem and have multiple ways you could implement it, and then decide which way is best? Every time. It's a journey, right?
Player movement.
Yeah. Oh, how many ways could you do it? Right. And sometimes then you get deep in the weeds and you realize, oh, there's another overarching system I could have utilized that would have covered all this, but can I go back? Should I go back? But that'll break all of this. It's a slippery slope. Programming is hard, and it based on a lot of experience, a lot of what you can do, how you do it, approaching problems in a creative way. I think it's full of creativity, though. Mad respect for anybody who's willing, brave enough to tackle it.
To fix the problem of everything breaking, actually learn how to modularly design your programming.
Right. So that piece doesn't break all of it, right? Yeah, and still connects into the whole. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. If you can talk to someone about programming who you know is a good coder, talk to them, pick their brain, try to get a sense of it. I think philosophically, just understanding logic based on a coder's mind is really important. It'll help you down the road, especially if you're concerned about design. Environmental modeling. I'm going to blast through some of these and get to more of the questions. Not to dismiss this. Environmental modeling, amazing. You guys build environments. Yeah. What's the most beautiful game you've ever played? Like, it had the most beautiful environments. Elden Ring? That's a great one. That's great.
Anthem.
Breath of the Wild, beautiful. Anthem, okay. Stray. Stray. I love Stray until I realized all the environments are built out of boxes. There's no curves because of the way the gameplay works. But it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Animation. Animation's tough. Animation's really hard. What's hard about animating in games? Do you think it's making the animation? Anybody worked with animation? Anybody moved like a rig? Have like moved, like make someone wave or something? Like move the arms on a character model? Never? Yeah, it's kind of fun. Get a sense of that. Hooking it into something playable, this mess on screen is not fun. It can be maddening. Every animation needs to connect to another animation. Do you know what blends are? Like, so I've got to jump and I've got to run, but I have to have frames that blend between the two so it doesn't jump. But then you can make transition animations that help the blends. There's just tons of stuff that can go wildly wrong with that. Marketing managers. Marketing, is it important? More important today than before, or different? More important? Like, how are you made aware? Were you aware of Always in Mind before you played it for this class? No one had seen it, hide nor hair of it, right? Missed it completely. Yeah, that's a problem, right? We could work for years. I can spend a ton of money trying to get a game out to market. And without awareness, you make the best game ever. If you guys aren't aware of it, how are you going to play it? You think that studio is going to make another game? No, they're done. They're done. There are, I don't know this. Maybe, do you know how many Steam games come out every year, Gabriel? I forget the term. It's like 10,000 or something on PC. I think it's over 1,000 a month or something. It's something insane. Now, that's not really a gauge for the quality of those games, but sheer number-wise, even if we were up against 999 games that were worse than our game, how are you going to get through all those 999 games to get to our game? Or if they all came out on the same day on Steam, you ever seen anybody get buried on the Steam new and trending by a bunch of microtransaction content? It's tough. It's tough to be an indie. I think it's tough to be AAA, even in this market on PC in particular. On console, little easier to get the spotlight because there are fewer games, but a lot harder to get that spotlight. A lot harder to get those partnerships. Marketing is tough, and whether you got a website, social media, etc., and marketing now bleeds over into marketing, PR, community, etc. Like just social alone. How many of you post daily? You guys post on social, or you just absorb? Do you consume and post and push? Do you like to tweet about your meals? Does anybody take pictures of their meals anymore? Yeah, how lame. What about games that you've encountered or movies you've seen or music? Do you talk about like the stuff you've seen that's cool? Do you give it props or have you seen this or whatnot? Or you just kind of absorbing saying like, oh, that looks cool, and then that's kind of your to-do list later to go check something out. It's wild, right? Like how would we even get into that feed? You know, how would we get into TikTok? We have a real issue just to get, you get 100 followers, 200 followers, 300 followers. Sometimes it can take years to get up to any sort of mass awareness. It's tough. Sales managers, similar. Sales is really something that we don't talk about at indie side, but it's something that publishers have whole teams around, right? Sales typically would have been people selling to retail. So your GameStops, Best Buys, everything. I've presented to those companies. You would fly out to like the Best Buy headquarters and be like, watch our game and play it. And they'd ask questions. You'd be like, all right. Like Walmart was always an intense when they had a buyer who was just super intense historically. But ultimately, you're just trying to get shelf space. You're trying to get them to buy it before anybody else can buy it. It's still a huge process, and it's part of the reason where publishers used to be more important than they are now. How many people buy your games digitally? When's the last physical game you bought? Name one that you bought you brought. Helldivers, you bought physically? Physically. You're buying digital, right? Is everybody buying digital? Like when's the last time you bought a used game at GameStop? You have recently? Yeah. See, you found a winner. Okay, you're digging through there. Physical has just gone away. Digital is it, which means you can put games up. It means everybody can put games up, and therefore now you've got 1,000 games out on Steam, etc. Recruitment. Anybody looked at recruitment? Anybody heard of Work with Indies? Work with Indies site? Browse it. Check out Work with Indies. Really cool site. We post all of our jobs there exclusively. Other sites pick it up from there. It's a great place just to see what type of opportunities are out there, what people are posting, and what type of small studios are looking for talent. It's a nice finger in the pulse. The people there, I recommend it mainly because the people there at Work with Indies are wonderful. They're great. What they're trying to do is genuine, and they're connecting a lot of great new talent. It doesn't mean a lot of the jobs don't really work with green talent. A lot of them are more the indie spirit. But I'd say of all the places to look for jobs, it is the most like student friendly. It is the most internship friendly. It's the most like get your foot through the door friendly because the spirit there is about, hey, let's all work on great stuff. These are small teams that need help. Sometimes, most times it's paid, but the internships there, I'd say if you're looking for internships, that's the place to go. All right, how can you maximize chance to see again? Middle school. What does it take to be successful in the gaming industry or any industry for that matter? What does it take? How are you guys successful students? What's your key to success? Anybody got a secret to tell me? You have a secret? What's your secret?
Trial and error.
Trial and error. Keyword trial, other keyword error. Trial and error. Perseverance. I think in the gaming industry, like I said, for me, what I've seen of all the stories, and I've been in the industry long enough, and I know gaming better than any other, so I'll speak to gaming. But the thing that really struck me early, and this is like early in the early 2000s, was everyone I met had a different story of how they got into the industry. Nobody had the same story. And I know there are more programs now, and you have more like university-driven stuff and more resources, and social media changes that. But the beauty was almost everyone I met and loved in the industry came from some other discipline, came through, and the shared factor was really their passion for games, their passion for creativity, their passion for being a good person, et cetera. There was a lot of passion. And a lot of that is different now, but I wouldn't say it's corrupted. I'd say the core of the industry, most people you'll meet just love games. They love games. They love gamers. They love talking to people. And I know we get a bad rap with gamer toxicity. You guys, like, how bad is gamer toxicity? Why do we have gamer toxicity? Anybody know? Are any of you a part of it? Because I want to talk to you after class.
I was just gonna say, I think it's because you're gaming, you kind of have that anonymity, like,
Anonymity of just nobody knows you, so you can say whatever you want.
exactly. It's the same thing as like social media. Like, there's like especially in middle school and sometimes high school,
Right.
kids deal with hazing for that.
Big time.
Because there's still not enough of a filter there, and so it's like.
And what's the repercussion?
When you're there's no
Yeah.
repercussion for a video game. You're like you can scream at your player or your teammates as much as possible, and there's no repercussion.
Yeah. I play Rocket League regularly, but I don't play it with a headset. Do you know why?
I can imagine.
I tried once. I literally tried one day. I used a headset one day. And a guy told me he hoped my mother died, and then was so angry he told me he also wished my grandmother was dead too. And I was like, why are you so angry? Like, we're hitting a ball around in cars, like, I love this game. And I get really angry too. I don't like losing. Any game I take seriously, nobody likes losing. But man, it was just awful. And I felt sorry for him. And I feel sorry for the state of gaming that we have that. But I don't think it's just in the moment in gaming. I think we have an issue outside of gaming. We have with what people use social media to go after people, or say inclusive, this is mine and you can't touch it and everything. You're all aware of Gamergate. There's just a lot of crazy stuff that we deal with. And that's not the point of today's talk. And it certainly doesn't motivate me on a day. That's not what I think about making a game. For the record, Always in Mind is meant to be a positive gaming experience, a story that's about positivity. A lot of it is post-pandemic, especially. I felt like we needed to lean into that. I hope there's an audience for it. The bros that want to kill Nazis and bugs and mechs, it's not for them, maybe. I personally like that, and I also like games that tell a story. I also love games that immerse me in a world and I can get lost in. Beautiful worlds like Elden Ring, it said, like, if it's beautiful, if it's atmospheric, I don't care. It can be violent, that's fine. I'm not saying those games are wrong, but have a healthy diet. For all of you, if you care about making games, etc., have a healthy diet, and maybe play games that aren't necessarily on the surface for you. It's like, don't judge a book by its cover, because there's definitely something to glean from any game. I do. As bad as a game can be, even the worst game ever has something it can teach you, much like any book, any film. Like, what's the worst film you guys have ever seen?
The Emoji Movie.
I thought the same thing when I saw it. I went back and watched it like 8 years later with other kids. Like, my daughter got older, and I watched with her. She laughed so hard, we all laughed, and we had fun. And I was like, you know what? I hated on this movie when we saw it, just thinking, like, how do they make an emoji movie? But I enjoyed my time watching it that time. And I was like, what constitutes a terrible movie? At the time I have, it was enjoyable. It's like the audience rating and the Rotten Tomatoes rating, like the critics' audience. I'm like, maybe time or place. I certainly have that where I've had movies that I hated on, and later I was like, oh, it's kind of not that bad. Or you watch a movie on a plane. You ever watch a movie on a plane and been like, that was a pretty good movie? But if you'd watch it at home, you would have been like, that was the worst movie ever. But you're so starved for entertainment, you're like, I'll take it. I guess gaming can be like that too. I don't know that I played a game that I really liked that I shouldn't have. No, I can think of a few. We used to bag on games. There was one called Bullet Witch. Look it up. That was a good one. I had a design director for Ubisoft and Compulsion. He's at Compulsion now. Good friend. He and I used to find the worst game we could find. We'd find a candidate. What's the worst game we could find? And we'd play it together. We both had to play it together, or we had to play it separately and then talk about it and find something good about it. Find what did we learn? That was a really great exercise. You guys start a club. Start the Bad Game Club. Play the worst game you can find. It's fun just trying to find the worst game. That alone as a challenge, even as a class, would be fun. At the end of the year, you can vote on which one was actually the worst. And then you'd still learn something from it, I guarantee. Time capsule. I was going to show stuff. Do you want to see some show and tell of some other stuff and get to the questions? Do you want to play some trivia first? Anybody want some swag? We can do total middle school. What do you think? How much time do we have? We have plenty of time, right? Okay, good. We have time for a little. Look, Athena, that's my stepdaughter. She got an Easter egg in the game. It's in the demo. You can go find it if you look hard. My little Max has one too. You can see that one. So that's Q&A. Let's jump into some trivia. And I have swag. I didn't get it out. I have swag for you guys. You can answer a question and get some swag. I'm pretty sure I have enough for all of you, so don't worry. Do you know this? What's not a classic arcade game? Dig Dug, Bump and Jump, Bad Dudes, or Snoblin?
I think
Snoblin sounds like a fake game. It's just the best game that was never made. Yeah, you're right. It's Snoblin. Would you like some swag? What would you like? A keychain, a sticker, a magnet? A keychain? All right, I'm going to hide it here so you guys don't see because I think the best thing is actually one of the stickers. Here, there's a nice Always in Line keychain you can have. There you go. Enjoy. You guys are the second people to get swag. I do tests on Sticker Mule. Here's a call out for Sticker Mule. If you don't know, Sticker Mule has these great deals. So I try to test out images to see what looks good as whatever, just in case. What does EFIG stand for? Anybody? You can't answer. Okay. Anybody? A guess. It has to do with languages.
languages.
Uh-huh. What would the topic of languages be in games? How would you translate? If we were going to talk about languages, not programming languages, good guess. That's good, but not programming. Whole section of gaming. Localization. Localization, eFigs is the standard localization. English, French, Italian, German, Spanish. Call it eFigs. So most times if a publisher is saying, are you localizing? You say, yes. Oh, eFigs? And you go like, yeah, standard. Not Cantonese, not Russian, etc. So eFigs is a standard. No one got that. I'm going to keep my swag. Not a game engine. You guys are good at this. Yeah, Flinch. Cool. It sounds like kind of a cool name for an engine, though, I think. Yeah, so I'll give everybody swag later for that one. Everybody called out. Oh, what's this? Dang it. FPS. What? There are multiple things. What can it be? Frames per second. First person. Why do they do that, right? It's kind of confusing, right? What's your favorite FPS? 60? No. What contains more data? A wave or an MP3? Wave. Good job. Do you guys know the story of MP3? Do you know like the lo-fi? This was way back, but this is relevant to designing games. Lo-fi, in terms of perception, quality in terms of perception, that's actually what this story is about. It was, they let, I forget how young they were. And this study is like 15 years ago. They let them listen to music, and they played like, have you ever heard DVD audio? Ever had DVD disc audio played through like full 7.1? Well, have you? Nobody? It's like one of the highest forms of consumer audio. So they'd play for these kids. They'd be like, okay, we're going to play this song, put on the headphones. We're going to play it here, this way, and then we play it this way. And they play DVD audio, and then they play MP3 or vice versa. What do they choose as the best sounding version of that song? The MP3. The crappier audio version of the song, they like. Do you know why they thought it was better? That's what they're used to. The other one was too crisp. It was too much. They heard all the sounds. They heard everything, and it overwhelmed. And it was like it sounded unmixed, right? How wild is that? Perception. It's perception. Same thing with video. Like you get to the point, too high res video versus we like low res. Or in gaming, like anybody see, like not just retro games, but like a schlocky horror film, like horror game made with like low res. Anybody play like Outlast or one of those? Like that could be even lower res and probably be even scarier because the details wouldn't quite be there. The atmosphere would be higher. Your brain's doing more work. Sega, Capcom, Konami. Yeah, where do they have headquarters? You guys know this? Japan. All right, you named it first. I got so much swag. Do you want me to give you the one I think is best? Do you trust me?
I do.
You do trust me. Okay. This is my favorite. It's the one of all the Teddy and proxies. Not to diminish the keychain. The keychain is also awesome. Good job, Japan. First Far Cry game was developed in what country? Anybody know? I flew over there and helped them. Cuba. Is there a lot of gaming in Cuba?
I don't know.
I don't know either. They won't let Americans go there. If you're Canadian, you can go freely. Did you know that? And if you fly through Toronto as an American, you can go to Cuba, but it's not Cuba.
Ubisoft based in France.
Ubisoft that's headquartered in France. Ubisoft has the American headquarters in San Francisco. I worked there. The dev in Montreal. Now, Far Cry wasn't a Ubisoft game at that point, or wasn't developed by a Ubisoft studio, should I say? It was developed by an independent studio, as published by Ubisoft, called Crytek.
Was it in Germany?
Where?
Germany?
Germany. You got it. Coburg, Germany. The Cry engine was born there. They built the engine and the game specifically for Far Cry, and then went on to make Crytek, made the Crisis, etc. So they just had the anniversary. The head of what was Crytek at the time, Shavat, posted. It was really nice to see. Fortnite was a co-op zombie survival game. True or false? True. You guys know your stuff. Isn't that weird? Fortnite. And Fortnite means what? What's a fortnight? You had to survive for 2 weeks. Crazy, right? Weird what things become. ESRB. You've heard ESRB. You know ESRB. What does that stand for?
Safety rated board.
Safety? What's the medium? Not hardware, but
Software.
there you go. Electronic Software Ratings Board. And they are good people as well. ESRB can be a absolute nightmare to work with. We had a fire elemental on the cover of Dungeon Siege 3 at Square, and they would not approve the cover art because they have a stand against people being burned alive. But it was a fire elemental standing there on fire, ready to fight, and they're like, "That's immolation. They're dying. They're burning alive. They can't have it." We're like,
Fantastic Four animated series. They had to switch out
"Yeah,
Human Torch with a robot.
right." Is it crazy, right? Like, this is the world. We're not 4 years old, people. Come on. You guys know this? Put them in order. Launch, concept, alpha, prototype, beta. What do you start with? Concept. Then what? What do you start? Yeah. Then what do you get to? And hopefully launch. Hopefully you make it there. Hopefully somewhere along the line it doesn't go completely off rails. Pretty simple. Now within that, like for our schedule, we break up into sub stuff. We actually have alpha. What do you know about like the core loop for a game? Do you guys talk about core loops or the compulsion loop? You ever talk about that? Like what do you do in a game? Like the like take Halo. Yeah, it could be the gameplay loop, the compulsion loop, the core loop. Like a Halo, what do? You shoot stuff, you clear an area, right? And then you go, or you drive through an area, you get, etc. But the core loop is like, I'm going to use these weapons, grenades to get through these people. That loop, and it's always a little different. With a dynamic AI, it's always a little different. You can do it over and over and over and over again. But that's the core loop. For us, that alpha, we see it as the alpha loop. So not the full game. Alpha wouldn't be we have the whole game mapped out. We have the full loop. And for us, that involves, it's not obvious from the demo, but a core area, a sledding experience, and a story area, and then back, and then repeat it in a different way with wildly different powers. The original Nintendo was considered what? 8-bit, man. Everybody gets the answer right. I can't give you all like swag like that. I'm gonna have to throw it out like confetti. Good. Well, so that's I think the end of this presentation, and then we go back to I guess the Q&A. But I'm gonna kill this. Let's do a what normally I guess one of the things that I started with. Do you want to see? You played the game. Did you see the trailers for the game? Let me go in reverse, okay? I'm going to go in reverse, and I am going to show you two things that nobody's seen publicly, okay? So I guess we're recording. That's okay. We'll deal with that. But we'll start with the announced trailer. Did any of you see the announced trailer? No? And we have audio, right? It should play audio. Okay, I'm just going to double click. You have VLC on here. Good job. That's what we need. The catch-all. Oh, we don't need that. No, I don't want to download.
Contemplated your future and wondered what kind of person you would be. I accepted my fate. Now you will tell. nothing remarkable. I just don't understand.
Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you. A little applause. No need. So that was the announcement trailer. If you missed that, you played the demo. If you see that, I don't know how that would mesh with your expectation, having played the game and whether that mapped to it. More recently, we released, after the demo was out, anybody watch the Mix online showcase? Heard of the Mix? Heard of Kind of Funny? Kind of Funny? Nobody watches Kind of Funny? Greg Miller? Nobody watches Greg? He's going to be so upset when I tell him. See, again, awareness. It's tough. You have to go out to these things and you hope people are aware of it. Anyway, we did another gameplay. Or another trailer. Do you think anything you saw in that announced trailer was gameplay? Was it gameplay or was it cinematic? Looked like gameplay? Yeah, some people thought no. The camera could be cinematic. We'd use like a stop camera, but it was obviously gameplay. So for the next trailer, we went, all right, we'll do it all gameplay. And at this point, we had a lot of content. So making trailers is really about how much content you have and how to cut it. So this is the most recent. And I'm showing you these not to, push these trailers on you. I'm happy to answer questions about it, but more to set context. And now I'm going to go backwards, okay, and show you stuff that no one's seen publicly because it was stuff I built at the time, either to pitch the game or to wrap my head around what I was building before I had the team. So that's why I'm showing you this. We'll do this. We'll go present, and then we're going to go way back. Let's see. Oh, come on, open. Ah, there we go.
I want to quit on the victory. And yet, I can't accomplish it without struggle. I don't say this to criticize or lecture. By now, all no stranger to hardship. Sure, you can that's what you. A boy with no mother. A boy who uncovered a secret long dormant inside him, with the power to illuminate what's lost. Here, you'll find your family's detailed history, their heartaches, their struggles, their triumphs, their tears. Each meaty story in zeros and ones. This is my gift to you.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. This one ends on some of the accolades for the demo, which was nice to have some accolades put up there, but for a demo, so I'll cut it short. Yeah. Do you know what the average time is for somebody on TikTok before they swipe off a video?
2 seconds.
It's 0.5 seconds before they know whether they want to swipe. Do you know when we released that announced trailer, not the trailer you just saw, the announced trailer, of the first 350 people who viewed it on TikTok? Do you know how many people watched the whole thing? Out of 350, just give me a number. How many people watched it? 3. Do you know on average how far people made it into that minute-long trailer? 3 seconds. This is what we're up against. I don't even know why we make trailers. I love trailers. I love making them. So I'm going to go way back, and this was what I rewarded the middle schoolers with. So, but it really rewarded for me. I keep smacking the mic. I put together a trailer back when I was first working on this early prototype, and I was dealing with what you see in the demo is Teddy's grandfather, for those of you who played it, with dementia and bringing the world back together, right? The first test that I did of that even concept of how would you gamify dementia, which sounds awful and totally insensitive to say it, but was encountering the grandfather who asked you to check the mail. It was a small house and go in and he's talking to you, will you check the mail? And you go check the mail. And every time you check the mail, you bring back something to him and he asks you to check it again. He doesn't realize that you checked the mail. So he asks you to check it. And every time you go out to check it, time has passed. And you get into this sort of loop where the world is sort of not as it seems, and you're starting to realize that to him, things don't match up. And it was a way for you eventually to kind of move through his story. That's not how we approach it now. But at the time I built this trailer, that was part of it. And it ended on a love, kind of the love story of that grandfather and his wife. And it was kind of this weird mystical thing. Anyway, a lot of experiments. It's not juvenile, but it's amateur. It's not polished, it's raw. But it's an exploration. And at the time, what I wanted to do was to create a trailer to see, does this mesh into something that somebody could hold on to? Is there substance here? Am I chasing something that I should pursue? So that's what I want to show you guys. And the point of it is, you're onto something. If something interests you enough to be building and making it, it's good. Try it. Keep at it. But it also is going to evolve. You're going to iterate on it, if you do it correctly, hundreds of times. And you may do that with lots of different people. And the number of times you're going to touch this thing and change it and improve it, hopefully improve it more than what we call unprove. We used to have a term at the agency. Don't unprove it. It's going to make it worse. It's just, it can be infinite, really, if we live that long. You're going to want to continue to make it better, but it has to start somewhere. So this is that. I'm going to show it to you, warts and all. I don't expect, if you want to laugh at it, you can, but I think you'll see something here. Frame rate. Early cloud. Transitions. Free fall. Ego. No, just kidding. I just had to put it in there. Somebody made it. It's more a disclosure. Okay. Nobody clapped for that one. That's so sad. That's so sad. All right. So that's just a confession of how early it was. Now, the story here is, a year later, I'd worked with one programmer for a limited amount of time, an audio designer who only contributed our conversion to Wise. So unfortunately didn't add more sound than what I added. And I went about pitching it. So what I want to show you is, you've seen the other trailers, you know, like where we are now. But at the time, this was alone trying to pitch for funding to build a team. I ended up funding that team myself, but this was the pitch. And this is the pitch trail. And this is what really no one's seen. There's a clip of this on the website, but the full thing is never public. So maybe we'll black it over or redact it. And I'm still proud of this. This essentially, secretly going forward, is the template for the trailer we will reveal in the fall with the new version of the game. So when you see this, if you see something like it later on publicly, hopefully you do, since you haven't seen anything else, I hope it reaches you. You'll be like, oh, okay, that was like the test run.
Standing out there, form was so round, and then all I remember is, why would anybody be on the coast in a storm like this?
The most very expects and lost their lives.
What's happening? Hello? Who's there?
It was just you with your code system. It will be a proxy between you and the content of your mind. big practical surgery.
It's all alone. My mind.
If we work together, we can make the journey back to consciousness.
Did I just make that? I'm getting the hang of it. Those things.
Endless possibilities.
Whoa. Thank you. Wait, who? And although I can't explain it, I know these words have told you something. Huh?
Thank you. All right. Now let's see if I can actually close it. All right. Do you see the evolution? It's been a long road, and we're not we're not close to the finish line yet. But it's taken a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it has evolved a lot. Like the story, even in the demo, the father's not awaiting surgery. It's not that story. He's actually with Teddy next to him. A lot of the things that happen with the father or the mother, those stories have kind of gone over into other family members' stories, and those have evolved. So you go with the flow, go where the story takes you. You also go where the team is most interested and where people are reacting and responding. And it's a journey. So that's what I wanted to prove. I mean, that was more, I think, for the middle schoolers, but I think something that's above their head, like they didn't get. Not to keep comparing you guys to middle schoolers, if that's like diminishing, but I think it's a lesson for anybody at any state. If you're pursuing something that it's going to be iterative. For me, the learning has been one, it's a lot harder than I expected to do this on my own and build the team. It's taken a lot more work. It's super hard to balance everything else in your lives. Like you all have lives, you all have things. So your interests, your family, your friends, your other pursuits, it's tough. But if you really love it and you put your all into it, I think over time it eventually starts to really pay off, and you kind of have to appreciate what it becomes. You can't know early on. You can't know. You wouldn't know, right? Like anything you've ever started, I guarantee a vision for it. The larger vision may, persevere, but the details you have to let come. And one of my favorite things I've told people, because now I've been working on this game, me personally, for over 3 years, is the connective tissue between story and little details and things that are kind of inherent in me, but now the team has absorbed them and they've added stuff. But we see these weird connections where something in the game, an object or a symbolism or something, connects in a weird way to the story, and that story connects into the gameplay in ways that we didn't see. Like we suddenly go like, oh my God, if we change that to that, that connects back to this. And that, like the web has become so, it's like lore, right? It's like there is a world here now that kind of happened without me knowing, where there's so much reality to it. There's been so much thought put into it from myself and the team that it's deep enough to have its own revelations. It's deep enough to have connections that we didn't see. It's deep enough to become organically something bigger than what we're putting into it. And I think that's really satisfying. That's not unique to our game. That's, it's just really special. I've never worked on anything personally that long to see that happen. And I love it. I love that it's happening. Do you want to see more embarrassing videos? Anybody, let's open it up to, we have 10 minutes? Oh my God. Okay. So all that said, burning questions. I'll show you any materials I have to answer a question. I'll answer it straight up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the game industry recently, I mean, I've seen a large kind of push towards a lot more indie development, indie studios. What are your thoughts on kind of future prospect students getting into the industry? Is that through making small time games with an indie company, or is that working in a big company? Right?
Totally depends on your path. What I see, I mean, as somebody who runs a studio and has looked at this point, maybe 2,500 applications in the last year. We had 600 applicants for our writer position alone. what really gets me and makes me want to work with somebody is to see them, this is me personally, that they have a pursuit of their own, that they're not trying to like get the skills or create the portfolio that everybody tells them they're supposed to do, but they've actually created something on their own or created something with a team. They have something tangible to put in front of me that makes me feel something. It's like, you can't, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how it made you feel, that sort of thing. That's what I look for in a portfolio or a candidate or somebody I want to work with. I want them to make me feel something. I want to see work that doesn't feel derivative, doesn't feel like somebody told me to put this together in this way and here it is. And I go like, well, yeah, you and the other 300 people, I just looked at their portfolios. Somebody told them to put it together in that way, but there's not something original. There's not something that shows a particular desire or something unique or different pursuit. I was telling Gabriel, like a lot of my employees, they work 20 hours a week. I hold them that. I work like 80 to 100, but they have other pursuits, be it personal or other projects they're working on. So I always like being the contrast, always in mind as their contrast. Some guys, they hate their other projects, or girls, they're always like, my other project sucks. And I'm like, what? I love that you like ours more, but I hate that you hate one of them, right? I wish you loved both. But for those that have personal projects on the side, they love theirs and they love mine. And they keep just being creative. They keep like cross-pollinating stuff. They're always learning. They always want to do something. So I don't know whether it's going to be more opportunities on the AAA. It seems like the layoffs and things, companies are getting smaller. They've made big bets that they can't pay off. I would encourage you guys, if you could get started with an indie that has stability, I'd say that's the ideal scenario, because you're going to be learning. You're going to be a small team. You're going to wear those multiple hats. You're going to have lots of opportunities to learn. But I think getting in through those doors is just amazing competition. Like you guys are in a situation that we're in as a studio. Hyper competitive market, oversaturated with talent and product. How do you stand out? How do you make it out there? So I guess, be bold, look for those opportunities, use your connections. I'm just connecting with Gabriel recently, but where people that can give you advice or connect you in, a word goes really far. Somebody vetted. So when you share stuff with people, I'd say be bold about who you share it with, who you talk to, reach out, be kind, because you never know where that one good turn can lead you to an open door. And if you have those skills and you have that, you walk through it. So, I wish I had a crystal ball to see. Like for us, I've never been in more of a unknown state in my career. I'm excited about it, but I'm scared. I'm scared for sure. I don't know where it's going to be next year, but yeah.
You said you did wear a lot of different hats. What was something that you thought you hate but ended up loving?
Ooh.
Vice versa, or something you thought you'd love but ended up hating?
I'm trying to think of what I hate. The only thing, this will seem like a cop-out, but the thing I hate most isn't a particular hat. The thing I hate most is that I can't wear all of them effectively. My bandwidth is limited. I can stay up. I spend time with my wife. I make dinner, etc. I go back to work. We'll watch a little TV. She goes to bed. I go back to work. I can stay up till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I can wake up at 7 with my now 4-year-old. I can do that. I can burn myself down to nothing. And I never get ahead. I never have enough time. And as I build more and more resources in a bigger team, I don't have time for them. And I hate letting people down. I hate, like, somebody will ask me, can you look at that thing? They're really excited. Can I get some feedback? Can I do this? Unblock them to move forward. I say, yes, I want to. Last night this happened. I was doing stuff work because I knew today I'd be with you guys, so I couldn't do the work I'd planned today. I still didn't get back. I woke up early so I can get feedback to someone I blew off last night. I was testing him, on Discord, saying at 12:30, I didn't get you the feedback I want, but this is the gist of it. So I hate that. I hate that I'm not multiple people, I guess. The stuff I love that I didn't expect to love, I didn't expect to have a multicultural global studio. That's one thing I love that's really amazing. I thought I was building a studio to connect old friends that I already knew. And it ended up inevitable is a studio for new friends, and new friends way beyond where I thought they'd be. My art director is in Italy. My audio designer is in Paris. I have a programmer from Chile. I'd never worked with anybody from Chile. I have people all over, an animator in Argentina, where I have people that are kind of just ready for work that I know, that I've interviewed, that I say, it's an open door. When I find the opportunity for you, I want to work with you. All these people, and we have this weird multidisciplinary, multicultural, like, little hotbed of people who just love games and are kind to one another. It's a weird culture. It's like this, I have a better culture than I could have engineered if I'd really spent more time thinking about it. And I love that. Absolutely love it. The studio is not what I devised. It is better than what I thought it could be. So that I love. Other hats, I mean, man, I didn't expect to be toying around in VFX and learning lighting and doing all this stuff. I love that. I love working with programmers, like dealing with tools. That's one thing, I guess, overall in tools and engine and stuff. I wasn't always a technical person, but digging into a game engine and really looking at all the tools and all the plugins and all the third-party assets, guys, go out there, have those tools. My favorite thing about game development is I used to tell people about ideas, right? If I met a game developer, be like, oh man, you should make a game like this. I get super excited and they'd be like, man, whoa, slow down, dude. Like, calm, like, what's going on? I'd be like, yeah, but because somebody else had to make it for me, right? My passion was I need to pass that on and somebody will make that game. When you can make it, when you learn all these tools and you realize, oh my God, I could wake up in the morning with a crazy dream I had that was wild. And by the afternoon, I'm playing a version of it, right? I'm playing the raw prototype version, but I'm playing it. I'm playing an idea that I brought to life through these tools. That's a miracle. I think that's just amazing for all of you. And I think that's something you hold on to wherever your careers go, et cetera. If you have that capability, that's where your passion always has an outlet, right? How many people are musicians? Anybody musicians in here? Play music? 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's like when you hear a tune, right? When you sit down and play, like that outlet, the outlet is everything. It's amazing having that capability. Other questions? Yeah.
How viable is it to like create a prototype and present it to like someone like New Blood or Devolver Digital?
How viable?
Yeah.
Well, getting that meeting is tough. I'd say if you have an opportunity to speak to a publisher, a lot of publishers have like unsolicited like portals where you can send in prototypes or materials. I had some like, this is, I can't ever get this thing to open. I had some materials here to give you guys a sense of like pitching. But pitching is its own thing. Having just a gray box prototype or something like that probably won't fit the bill. You'll want to have materials ready. You want to have a presentation and bring people through what is your game, what is, what's the story, what are the features. This is an online thing that has tons of video in it, so as a PDF, it doesn't really sell it. Who's your team? What's your experience, etc. People want a lot. We made a mini comic. It's really fun. We made a mini comic. We wrote 3 short stories to try to exploit our IP to show people that we were serious about it, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, pitching is a whole other thing, like a master course on that in terms of like what to do. But viable is if you have something great, I'd say where you can seed it out there, if you can get a playable out on Steam or something that gets attention, I would say if you're just starting out and you want kind of a viral success story, the best you can do is to do a lot of that on your own. Get something up on an itch.io, get something up on Steam, get a playable out there that people actually really want to play, build that fervor, even with a free game. That will get you through a door like nothing else. Coming up with a concept or saying, here's a pitch deck, even if you have a playable that nobody's played, that you've been too shy to like put out there or test publicly, you won't have the same clout. But if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the team, if you don't have the track record and you want to do something fresh, I'd say forget the publishers. That shouldn't be your step. Go to gamers. Go to gamers and prove yourself there, and then publishers will care. Then
That's why I'm trying to go through using a game jam to like create a prototype.
game jams are awesome.
There's a Metroidvania month in 24 starting in the May.
Awesome.
And I'm definitely going to be building it during that.
That's amazing. Game jams are incredible. For any of you that have a chance to participate in game jam, do it. They're amazing. Yeah.
What do you do when it comes to brainstorming, especially with like always in mind? Like, how did you get your ideas?
How to get the ideas? Like the initial concept, like at the concept phase. Good question. The initial, I would say my advice would be don't settle on your initial concept, because the original for Algernon, Project Algernon, that became Always in Mind was actually, it was similar. It was a boy with an AI in his mind. That was the general conceit. But it initially was called Algernon. Has anybody read Flowers for Algernon? Originally it was called Algernon because the AI went on that path. It was a Flowers for Algernon story. The AI actually was this incredible tool that you used in the game to do incredible things very early. You used it to do anything. You could build bridges or fly or whatever. And the game was like, gave you these impossible challenges, but you had this incredible tool. And then the system gets shocked and the AI becomes dumb and the AI becomes a liability. And you had to learn from what you'd learned by using it, kind of the superpower, to bring it through the world now to get it out. And so it was a total flowers for Algernon. Now that was Teddy and Proxy in the earliest inception. As I started to build out the larger story, then I got into these connected networks, and it was hospital patients. That evolved into the family itself, into these family stories, et cetera. So it kind of followed this path of concept. But initially, it was just letting a seed of an idea explore whatever it inspired, write it down, jot it down. At that time, I didn't have the skills I have in Unity, so I wasn't even caring about prototype and gameplay. It was more about what are all the possibilities, right? And as that built out, then it was a dedicated 2 to 3 years of my time working in Unity to prototype. How do I get those ideas out? And I actually went down a different path. I started prototyping something completely different than always in mind, and had to like pump the brakes and go like, what am I doing? The whole point of this was so I'd be building this game, and I was building something darker. The pandemic hit. I became a dad. I went, oh, it's like I was like a flower searching for the light. I went back to that concept and said, oh my God, I was sitting on it the whole time. And luckily what I'd conceived with this other project, a lot of it translated over, but it went from like a dark version into a light version in Always Mine. So, yeah. Are we wrapped? Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.